Hello, my name is Isabella and I will be your host today for another mathematics video brought to you by RJ. Today I have a crazy question for you. How can nothing produce something? Crazy, right? How can nothing produce something? This is the result of a certain situation when using the formula we derived in the previous video. If you haven't watched it yet, I suggest watching it now. Before we look at the formula, for the product of consecutive triangular numbers, the reason nothing produces something is actually a consequence of the factorial function, which, as I stated in the previous video, multiplies every integer from n all the way down to 1. This is obvious by the reflexive property. N factorial equals n factorial. No magic here, but we can separate the factorial by factoring out an n. N times n minus 1 factorial equals n factorial. Suppose we now divide both sides by n. N minus 1 factorial equals n factorial over n. Here is where it gets interesting. Let us substitute 1 for n. 1 minus 1 is 0. 1 factorial is just 1, and this one is just 1. Simplifying this, we get 0 factorial equals 1. Amazing, isn't it? This is how 0 produces 1. This is great. But this doesn't show how nothing produces something. A lot of people may think of 0 as nothing. However, 0 is a number, and therefore 0 is something. This is where we use the formula for the product of consecutive triangular numbers. We derived 3 different versions of the formula in the previous video, but for ease, I'm going to use the formula for the product of total consecutive triangular numbers. Before we move on, I'd like to point out a few typos in the previous video. The n and p in the denominators in the final formulas were meant to be exponents. Keep in mind the n or p, depending on which formula you use, represents the number of elements in the set. In other words, the number of triangular numbers in the set. So, if there are 0 triangular numbers in the set, then we have an empty set, or nothing. Now, let's plug in 0 for n. We already stated that 0 factorial is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 factorial is 1. 2 to the 0 power is 1. Thus, when we simplify this, we obtain 1. This is how nothing produces something. An empty set produces 1. Beyond that, we obtain our entire number system from 1. If we keep adding 1 to itself, we get all the natural numbers. If we keep subtracting 1 from the natural numbers, we get all the integers. If we divide integers by integers, we get all the rational numbers. If we create an infinite summation of rational numbers, we get all the real numbers. Finally, if we include the imaginary number, the square root of -1, or I, then we get all the complex numbers, which is our entire number system. So, not only is that how nothing produces something, but also how nothing produces everything. Of course, this is from a mathematical standpoint. Physicists have been working on this problem for decades, more specifically, how our universe came to be. and the role of black holes transporting matter and energy into other realms. Do you think this mathematical insight could offer any clues to the answer to this question? I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.